It's a damn tough life full of toil and strife we whalemen undergo. And we won't give a damn when the gale is done how hard the winds did blow. 'Cause we're homeward bound from the Arctic ground with a good ship taut and free. And we won't give a damn when we drink our rum with the girls from old Maui. Rolling down to old Maui, me boys rolling down to old Maui. We're homeward bound from the Arctic grounds, rolling down to old Maui. Hey, Lindsay. Hi, Aussie. Once more we sail with a northerly gale through the ice, the wind and rain. Them coconut fronds, them tropical lands, we soon shall see again. For 6 hellish months we passed away on the cold Kamchatka Sea. But now we're bound from the Arctic ground, rolling down to old Maui. Hello, Margot. What if instead of whaling, all the tribes that used to do whaling just started helping Hollywood shoot whale movies instead? It's an idea. Is that a Gaelic song? No. No, it's a Whalers song. It's a Whalers tune. I'm not exactly sure what the origin is of it is. I'm not exactly sure what the origin of it is. I'm not sure if it's Anglo-American in origin or Pacific Islander in origin. I'm not exactly sure. I would guess Anglo-American given the English lyrics, but you know, you can never be too sure. Yeah, Trent's got big problems. But I tell you what, having to chat in here is no longer one of them. I love the flag. Yay. Hell yeah. I hate this weirdo, and yet here you remain. Funny that. Walking home drunk and dysphoric. I'm sorry, Margot. We love you. Well, I'll put it this way. I mean, the vibes you give off, you know, like, I mean, I just assume you're any other girl on the internet. I would if I didn't know that, you know, you're also trans. Like, as you've told me before many times, you don't exactly give me masculine vibes. So, if that makes you feel any better. They make sure to comment so the algorithm keeps sending them here. Right. They secretly want to make sure that they stay on my feed constantly and that they'll see my content regularly, but they don't want to say that, and they don't want to indicate it directly with something that could be like traceable if their partner looks through their phone or something. So they got to do the next best thing. just leaving hate comments. Say not to drugs, gang. Say yes to phonics. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go on whack-a-mole. We're going troll hunting, y'all. Can you please say, no, I can't. Not unless you pay me. Come back in a minute and consider saying it in a super chat, and maybe I'll think about it. What is phonics? Seek help. Did you spit on the floor? No, but when you come back in a couple minutes, you can talk to me about where I did spit, which was in a trash can. Trans? No offense. Yes, I'm a trans woman. This is a genuine question. Are you trans? I just answered that. Never seen a girl spitting so naturally? You apparently have never been around the women of my family. You guys are not seriously saying you don't know what phonics is. Phonics, spelling, sentence structure, basic concepts of language. And tell me to God you don't actually swear. Say wallahi right now. I don't believe you. Motherfucker. Motherfucker, what the fuck? What did you... Well, we're cooked. We're cooked. We're cooked. We're barbecue chicken. That is insane. That is fucking insane. Anyway, you guys noticed that Donald Trump's latest squeeze looks an awful lot like his daughter? The daughter used to talk about wanting to have big boobs when she was no longer a baby. Yeah, that daughter. The daughter he talked about wanting to have sex with pretty much every time he got an opportunity to say it until he became president, and then slipped up a few times afterwards. Yeah, that daughter. Have you guys noticed this? I think that we got a Bill Clinton situation on our hands. And I feel like the revelation is just waiting to come out. Who hurt you enough to be like this? What you should really be asking is who hurt me enough to where I didn't feel safe enough to come out as trans until I was 21? Be a way better question. Way more pertinent and societally revelatory question. He's gonna suck Bill Clinton again? Oh no, oh my. Well, not quite. That's not exactly the Bill Clinton situation that I had in mind. Good morning. Good morning, Aurora. would be more reasonable to deduce that you just hate yourself. Why is that, Teddy Haig? I love these people who've got hot takes on my inner psychology. You've been watching for 10 minutes, but you've got all these internal insights on my mindset. I mean, I'd love to hear some of it. You're chain smoking indoors and have yourself a bowl cut. Well, Mrs. Avery, I'm sorry to say that your child is retarded. Okay, well, I'm going to look at that window, and in doing so, I will reveal a critical mistake in your abilities to analyze, to pick up on what's going on around you, and to think before you speak. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Would you look at that? As it turns out, they're bangs, which should be really fucking obvious. He thinks he's smart. Every jackass in these comments does. Some of them actually are, and they end up getting memberships, sticking around and becoming regulars. But most of the dipshits in this chat room trying to get a rise out of me are dumbasses that are lucky they don't drown in the shower. It's a miracle none of them have broken their neck after a misfortunate mishap that morning, tying their shoes. Like me, exactly like you, Potterhead, exactly like you. Are you a male or female? I'm not quite sure at this point. I might subscribe, but I'm not sure. I'm a woman. Honestly, whether I'm male or female only matters if you're trying to date me. But I mean, I do openly identify as a trans woman, so you can probably deduce from that. But, you know, I'm trying to get you to think about this question a little bit before you go asking it to the next trans person you run into. Not all of us are rude as hell, that's true. Well, like I said, it's a wide mix. It's a variety of people that appear in the chat. But boy, does it seem to trend towards dumbasses. Isn't it kind of gay to wonder what someone's gender is? Just saying. I mean, I don't know. You know, not necessarily. Oh, isn't it okay? Yes, yeah, it's totally okay. It's totally okay. It's just a weird question to ask somebody, and there are better ways to ask what you're really trying to figure out, which is how should I address you, you know? That's why people are now starting to adopt phraseology like, you know, what are your preferred pronouns, for example? Because that allows someone to, like, get to the heart of the reason why most people are asking. Because there's really only, like, 2, maybe 3 reasons why someone is asking a question like that, so clumsily worded. Either they're trying to figure out how they should refer to somebody, or they're really hateful and they want to incite some kind of argument, or they're like an ally that is kind of clumsy at being an ally and is like fascinated by these marginalized communities that they stand up for but don't get to meet very often. And, you know, in either case, except for the second one, I think it's varying shades of fine. And ultimately, it's more of an inconvenience than anything, but it's something that only gets asked of trans people, and that you can get around by getting to the core of what you're actually trying to ask. Like, if you're just trying to incite me into an argument about my gender, you can just call me a fat troon or whatever, and I'll call you a dumbass hayseed, and we'll trade insults back and forth, and we'll see who ends up out on top. But if your purpose is to figure out how you want to refer to me, like how you should refer to me, or you know, if I am indeed one of the marginalized communities that you try and stand up for in your life, then I think that that's, you know, it can be annoying sometimes, but it's fine. Clumsy ally. Been there, not gonna lie. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, people go through phases like that. You know, like you're trying to step out of your comfort zone and accept people that you've been trained your whole life not to accept and to look down on. I can understand why so many people go through that kind of like, it's almost like a molting stage in chickens. You know, if you've ever raised chickens, you know that chickens go through this stage, you know, when they're growing out their first set of feathers, going through their first big molt, basically. Their first big visible molt, anyway. And they start looking very, very much like the dinosaurs that they are. And, you know, my dad and I always called that the dinosaur phase when I was growing up. And I feel like it's kind of a similar situation with someone who's learning to be an ally, learning to be accepting of people, but hasn't quite figured out the ins and outs of it yet. Hate is taught 100%. 100%. You are not born hating people around you, judging them for their skin color, their sexual expression, their gender expression, and all these other arbitrary characteristics upon which we choose to assign so much weight. Don't want to be rude, are you trans from birth? All signs seem to indicate yes. Here's what we know. You can't make someone trans, which does kind of imply that it is to some degree inborn, because there were a number of quite unethical but scientifically conducted in all other ways experiments where you know, a number of sexologists, John Money most famously among them, attempted to do that very thing. See if you could make someone be trans or make someone not be trans. And what was found in all instances is that attempting to make someone trans who is cis just results in a very angry, bitter, and repressed cis person. Attempting to make someone cis who is born trans or who is very firmly trans just results in a very angry, bitter, alienated trans person. So, like, we basically know for a fact that you can't make someone trans or make them not trans, which leads me to think that it's got to be something tied into a person's nature. The problem is we haven't exactly isolated specific genes for that. There's also but that's not the only like piece of evidence we've got either. I just remembered this other study. I don't remember the authors, but there was a study done that showed that trans women are way more likely to have brains that are structurally more similar to cis women's brains than to cis man's brains, and conversely, trans men are more likely to have brains that are structurally similar to a cis man's brain than they are to a cis woman's brain, which leads, you know, further credence to the idea that it is something about the way a person's body and brain are configured. For what day's jackpot, Elder God? Fuck it, I'll buy a ticket. I don't know, what, like $2? Yeah, I'll buy one. Fuck it. Maybe somebody's crazy ass chat numbers will win me the jackpot. What night's drawing? Yo guys, we should get the likes up. That is true. Please hit that like button if you have not already done so. It massively helps the live stream's reach, and that helps me find more interesting people to argue with in here. If it does win, will you split? I ain't got their email. It's almost certainly bullshit anyway. I don't actually expect to win anything from it, but it'd be funny if I did, you know. It'd be funny even if I won, like, a non-jackpot or something. It'd be funny. It would be really funny. Wouldn't it be funny as hell? Imagine Monday, you're like, okay, F you all, I'm a multimillionaire piece. Nah, dude. If I won a big amount of money like that, even if I only ended up with, like, you know, several tens of millions of dollars after that, I don't even know how I would spend all that money, so a ton of it would probably just end up getting donated. A lot of it would probably be gifted to family and stuff like that. But honestly, like, with how expensive land is and shit, let's say I won $10 million after tax in some lottery, I would probably knock a good 10 or 20% of that out just in buying land out west with water rights. Good morning, Abigail. I noticed that you followed my Instagram, by the way. Yeah, you guys should check out my socials in the description. I got tons of them. And I'm starting to check them regularly, too. I just don't exactly know. I never quite figured out, like, the content loop of a lot of these other social media platforms, so I'm not exactly sure how to approach it, but yeah. So many local seats go uncontested, prime real estate for third parties and independents. I've made this point before. People feel caught up and tied paralytically to the two-party system, but a lot of that's just because people are not as civically engaged as they should be, and because people just largely haven't engaged in the right strategies. Like, including, like, you know, third-party potential candidates and shit. It really should be. I think that the goal of a rising, like, competitor third party in America, its biggest goal should be winning local elections. And I'm glad to see a lot of DSA-aligned candidates starting to win not just some local elections, but also some big nationally relevant ones as well. Obviously, the most relevant and notable of these being Zoran Mamdani, but there's also been Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. There was Kat Abugzala did not end up winning her primary, but she was an incredibly compelling candidate that came, I think, second or third, with quite a lot of votes, and has continued to put that energy that grew around her towards helping uplift other progressive candidates and DSA-aligned type folks. So I think that really is, like, kind of like the ideal strategy. Get in on so many of these races that are not being contested by anybody, and with very little on-the-ground activism, because you're talking about smaller towns and neighborhoods in a lot of cases. you can get elected in a place and start to have, like, a little bit of progressive representation in an area that may have only had conservative representation for the last 50 years. These things are possible. People just have to have vision. But no, I don't know. I get too much out of these streams and shit to stop. I don't even think I would tell you guys if I won. In fact, I think I would tell you guys that that I lost. But you'd probably start to figure out pretty quickly. You know? You guys would start to catch on reasonably quickly, I think. You'd be like, how the fuck is Phoebe suddenly affording to move? Like, what are all these improvements that are happening? Why are they all happening at once? So I would have to structure things. Honestly, the biggest thing is, if I won a bunch of money like that, I would no longer feel the need to shill at all. So that would probably be something, somebody'd be like watching for a week and they'd be like, you haven't shilled one time. What happened, Phoebes? And I'll be like, that reminds me. What a good time, you know? Phoebe's got a new yacht? No. I'd probably buy a boat, but I would not buy some crazy yacht. I would get, like, a reasonable little houseboat. I don't even think I would get something that I could take in blue water. I would get some kind of, like, riverine houseboat suited for the big reservoirs and marine highways of the continental U.S. That is one of my dreams to do if I ever have enough money to do it, but I'm not gonna, I couldn't stomach having something that extravagant. I'm just not that type of girl. See, I like a pontoon boat. I love the idea of a pontoon boat, but I like better the idea of a pontoon boat I could live on. If I had 10 million after tax, I'd move somewhere overseas since it's LGBTQI friendly, buy a decent used car that gets good gas mileage, build a decent house on a few acres of land. I don't know that I'd go that much more extravagant than that, but that sounds about like what I'd do. Except I think I would probably try and find something that suited me that was already built, and then, you know, get a place that's permitted for a couple of outbuildings and shit. That way I can get that done. Because one thing I know just from experience is that I definitely want to have a specific area, like an outbuilding, that maybe if I build it from the ground up or something, or build it out of a new portable building that's not the one I'm about to be moving it into, because it's not quite big enough. But, you know, maybe if I've got like moving on to a new property, I've got the ability to put in new plumbing and stuff and a new septic or sewer connection or whatever. I would like to have a studio area that is completely sound insulated and everything, that has like everything I need to record, stream, to, you know, chill out and smoke, and have like kind of a, you know, a she shed, I guess, for off hours as well. And that's something I'm already kind of going to be building out just as I'm here, but, you know, it's also something I would want to do in the future. So no more trains? Hopefully not. I know you guys might like them, but to me, they can be very annoying. My mom might throw me out of the house because I rage quit. You rage quitted her? Oh? That's not good. I love the train. It's like an extra character, and the cat. Yeah, I mean, they are kind of characters in the stream. And it's not to say you'll never hear the train. As long as I'm living on this property, you guys will hear the train, even if it's muted, kind of, in the background, probably. But on nights like this, where it's nice and cool, I would definitely turn the mini split off and just open the windows. And let the, wind flow through, get some fresh air in there. And then you guys would hear the train. Probably be easier to just rent one when you want, or to go in with a few people around you. Rent one, what do you mean? Oh, okay. I got you. You're talking about boats. Here's the thing. Honestly, if I had the money, I'm not saying this is something I'm gonna do if I don't, but if I don't, then it's just probably an experience that I would, maybe consider doing. But it's something that I have thought about because if you have a nice enough boat, and I wouldn't want something that's extravagant, but if you've got something that's nice and new and modern, or reasonably modern and well maintained, you can like sign up to let the marina rent that thing out, or to let a charter company rent that thing out from whatever marina you've got it docked at. And obviously rich people do this and stuff, do this kind of shit for their yachts and shit like that all the time. But even like a regular middle class person that manages to secure themselves like a, $25,000 houseboat or something could, in theory, do something like that. And in such a case, the revenue from people renting it out would probably pay for the ongoing maintenance on it. I think I'd like to buy a shop and do pet grooming if I had the money. Then it wouldn't really matter how well it did, as long as it was enough to break even. Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. I got all kinds of big dreams. I don't think most of them are ever going to happen, but I got all kinds. First thing I would be doing is paying all my debt first thing. I am proud to say at this point that I have very little debt. Just under $1,000 of total debt. Everything else has either been paid off or has fallen off. And honestly, depending on how much I make this month, when I get paid next month, which will be my earnings from this month, obviously, I might be able to clear that out. One of the things I would like to do by the end of this year is have all of my debts to various state governments as well, because I've got a few tickets I need to pay off and shit like that, but I'm going to get all my little various debts paid off and paid up and paid out. Because that'll be a unique feeling, and it'll be something I haven't experienced since I was 18, so hell yeah. I am also almost debt-free. What is it? Hospital bills do not count because surgery isn't optional. Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, if I counted just the debt that wasn't tied to medical debt, then it would be lower. So I'm 30 now. If I live till I'm 90 and somehow get $6 million, that's $100,000 a year. $3 million would be $50,000 a year. That's how I calculate it. Yeah, that's valid. Oh, does DSA members have a chance of being the DNC's Tea Party? I don't like the idea of framing it as the DNC's Tea Party because the Republicans' Tea Party ultimately ended up being something that worsened the Republican Party, made it a more reprehensible party, a less accountable to the people organization. So I don't like calling it that, but if you're asking, could the DSA and the progressive politicians that seem to be winning their primaries that are allying with the DSA be the spear point of change within the Democratic Party that forces leadership to reconsider past decisions and policies and forge a new path? I sure hope so. Thank you for the $5, by the way. I appreciate that. Let me give that a little heart. But yeah, I mean, I genuinely hope so. I really do. I want them to be that. I don't know if that's exactly how things are going to go down, but that's what I'm hoping for, and that seems to be what a lot of other people are kind of expecting out of the whole affair, is that after this, the moderate centrist Dems will be made obvious as the corporate shills that they've always been, and that people will start refusing to vote for people like that and only electing genuine progressives in the primaries. And then obviously they are the ones who will win in the national elections or in the proper local elections or whatever. I would like to get some higher education, but it's hard to justify when I'm unsure what path would make me happiest for no reason. It's one of the reasons I think that universal higher education is just like a moral good and something that should be ordained in the interest of the public good, because, like, how do I put it? Number one, you are so unlikely to actually meaningfully know what path is going to make you the happiest when you first start school. And number two, learning more and getting even a basic college education, even if all you end up getting is just like an associate's degree in general ed or whatever, like that by itself still is going to put you in a like a position of, I don't know how to put it, because I don't want to sound like bad, but it puts you basically at a position of unique privilege in a society that's getting increasingly stupider. And even when everybody has access to it, it's still going to be an advisable thing to go after. Man, my nose is itching today. What the fuck? I still have $42K in student debt, and I work in a totally unrelated field to what I studied. Yeah, and that's a lot of American stories, so I understand why Taylor's so reticent. That's why I think that college education should be free, so that way you can study what you want, get into a field you're genuinely interested in, and maybe you don't instantly get a job in that field. But then, if you're not paying at the point of service for education through massive student loans and debt programs and shit, then that doesn't really matter all that much. You can work whatever job you end up getting, and then maybe eventually you keep looking, you keep certifications and education ongoing, and maybe eventually you do find a job that enables you to engage with the career path you tried to choose with your college schooling. But that's such an unfeasible road when college is so fucking expensive, and when it leaves you with such a massive pile of debt. I would not trade my education for anything, but know what you are getting into with the loans. Higher education should be free. Yes. Free at the point of service. Paid for by taxes. I honestly think that is one of those things that is kind of like a moral civic duty of a society that wants to be prosperous and functional. You kind of need to make sure that people can read and write and understand what they're getting into, more or less. You need to make sure that people understand history so they make better electoral decisions when it comes time to vote. And when voting no longer works, it takes an educated populace to know how to effectively apply the alternatives. It's one of the reasons why the anti-war movement and the civil rights movement of the 1960s and 70s, that's one of the reasons why they worked. And it's one of the reasons why those tactics worked. Is because you're not just talking about a giant group of broadly representative people. It was kind of a massive boon, or boom, I guess, rather, in the ability of the average American, especially the average white middle class American, which middle class used to be a way bigger and broader definition back then. There was a proliferation of people like that were suddenly able to go to college, who would not have been able to go to college 50 years before that if they'd been brought up in a different time. Many of the people that we're talking about, they were going to college throughout the 60s and some of them through the 50s, at times when America was really prospering in a lot of ways, and there were a lot of these jobs that people could work, and they could, figure out some schedule whereby they worked in the afternoon and they had most of their college classes in the morning and shit, and they were able to finance their own way through school with very little debt. Overall cost of living, of course, was also cheaper relative to the wages being made and the amount of benefits accrued and everything, so if we really want to ensure that people can act on the better angels of their nature, you need to make sure they're informed. And I think that our best evidence of that is the civil rights movement. I wonder if it's this candle I'm burning. Yes, you have to prop up the education of the populace, or you are doomed. Better than my taxes paying to dismember kids halfway across the planet. Or dismember. Yeah, no, for sure. Literally. Well, that's the thing, man. When I think about the military-industrial complex and the sheer amount of money that our military spends on bombing campaigns and worldwide violence, the amount of like money, taxpayer money that our government and therefore us spend on that shit is reprehensible when you think about the amount of things that it could pay for here at home that would actually make us better, not just domestically, but also to our neighbors across the globe. I worked all the way through school and still have debt, and I think that is the same for lots of people. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure it is. But I bet you it's not as true for people that were born in, say, the late 40s or early 50s, who, you know, grew up in a like fundamentally different economy with kind of like a growing preponderance of schools and well-paying jobs. And two, a lot of the American education system was kind of like coming into its own throughout the period of like the early 1900s through to the 1960s, and kind of like evolving into the modern like academic environment during that time. So I think that that probably has something to do with it too. I don't know. I know that that's the case for most people within your age bracket and younger, though. Hard times are here when someone works a job for 30 years, someone gives them a watch, kicks them in the ass and says, hey, a computer took your place. Yep, that's hard times. Yep, well, it's not the first time this has happened either, but it's perhaps the first time that it's happened on quite this scale. See, when Teamsters got replaced by trucks and cars, you're talking about like, you got two jobs and now you got one job. So it wasn't really that big a deal. Maybe at most you're taking it from like a 3-person job to a 2-person job, or a 3-person job to a 1-person job. But, you know, like you're not, like the reduction was not that vast. Whereas with AI and automation kind of like starting to merge, and the applications of these technologies widening, it's getting to the point where there are lots of jobs that AI is replacing and leaving. Well, let me just put it this way. It's gone from, you know, lose one, keep one, to like lose 9, keep 1. And I know that that's not going to last forever. I know eventually that we'll run into another technological wall that's going to take us another 20 years to get past. But I think that it's a probably pretty likely chance that about 30% of the American workforce just doesn't functionally have a job after the next 5 years. What do we do with those people? We are competing against AI and automation. Yeah. Well, they're related technologies. A lot of the reason why AI started being developed in the first place was not for this like large language model shit necessarily. A lot of the first like people that were trying to figure out kind of like adaptive machine learning models were people trying to figure out how to build robots that could more efficiently run and operate warehouses than a human could. And like these competing, well, I wouldn't say competing, but these intertwined technologies have continued to evolve and update somewhat separately, but somewhat in concert over the last 10, 20 years. A little longer than that even, but at this point we're getting very close to a time when there will be companies like FedEx that can get a contract with XAI or OpenAI or one of these big AI companies to basically have an iteration of one of their models that runs warehouses. and warehousing operations for them. And just imagine, like, you think about all the bureaucratic stuff on the back end, obviously that's going to get done with it, but depending on how much power the facility is able to give this thing to work with, it could do everything from controlling the back end and the bookkeeping and shit like that, to actually providing a framework for controlling a bunch of robots that are running around the factory or the warehouse doing the tasks that need doing. There are a ton of factories already basically run off of robots. It is not a far stretch to say that is going to be pretty soon integrated into existing AI technologies and made into something that can stand to replace massive amounts of human beings by being able to iterate and improve on itself in ways previous technologies obviously are not able to. We have a union where I live called the Teamsters. Yeah, it's a national union. It's an AFL-CIO union, as far as I know. You can now outsource low-wage jobs. It just needs investments to buy most of the equipment, essentially removing human staff from automation itself. Mostly then replacing that with maintaining and training the maintenance, essentially being technicians. Yeah. Well, that's the model that most businesses that are doing a lot of bulk commerce and shit like that are moving to. And from a purely efficiency-minded standpoint, and maybe even from a human benefit standpoint, if the workers own the means of production, and this was something that workers' councils were choosing to work on actively to reduce the amount of workload that their collective has, while still keeping them empowered and putting those benefits back into the community, then ultimately I think that there'd be very little problem with it. The problem, as it stands, is how many people stand to just be fucked over by this with no good alternative. But I think it's fucked up that the conversation on the left has become, I think because of how people reacted to like the r/anti-work drama and shit like that, but the conversation on the left is all about people are losing their jobs, people are losing their jobs, people are losing their jobs, when it should really be about, and the answer is like, just, like, keep the jobs, but really the answer should be, we need to have an ownership stake in this technology. Maybe that means that any personally traded AI company is, I don't know. Maybe that means that, like, the government buys like a controlling, not a controlling stake, but a voting stake in every big AI company. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the answer to that is bureaucratically, but I know the answer in terms of morality and ethics is that you can't really blame people for hating this technology and wanting to see it undone when you're not giving them any other route towards fulfilling lives. But that's where the conversation needs to be centered. In my opinion, it needs to be centered not on prevent automation, stop AI, but rather on, like, fucking taking over it and having control over it and having, like, the profits from that massively redistributed to the people. I wanted to smoke, but I usually wait till I'm in a social setting. Well, let me smoke up with you then. Well, like I said, I don't exactly know how it should be done bureaucratically, because anybody who watches me regularly can tell you I'm not exactly an economics girl. But I know it's something that needs to be done. However, it's figured out. Will you talk about Helltown? I legit said this stuff like 5 years ago and we're barely there, so we probably got another decade before things actually show promise. Maybe, but I feel like things are accelerating at a rapid rate at this point. I feel like we're seeing another one of those leap forwards. Alright, well, I gotta step out to use the bathroom, so I will be right back. Oh. Oh. I know economics, with the government getting a share and shaking up a company is very bad, as a company might rely on a bailout instead of punching itself out of a mess or getting bail loan from others. Right. I generally am not in support of state ownership of corporations either, because it seems like one of the many inroads to fascism. So that's why I say I'm not sure how it should bureaucratically work, and I'm trying to focus more on the spirit of what I'm advocating for, rather than some specific framework, because I'm not a policymaker and I'm not sure exactly how it should be implemented. But ultimately what I'm saying is that there should be an expectation that maybe it should be like a tax rate that applies specifically to AI and automation companies that reflects how great a chunk of the labor market are they excluding from jobs, basically. So if it's 30%, then they're taxed 30%, and if it's fucking like gets to the point where it's like 80%, then they're. But I don't know. I genuinely don't know how it should be done. I can sit here and fucking prognosticate about what I think might be done in that situation, but I don't fucking know. I'm not an economist. I just know if they're allowed to keep screwing people out of their jobs and providing them no other option, then like eventually like things are going to get very bad. And I think at that point they'll try to implement some socialist measures or some kind of shit to try and right the boat a little bit so that consumerism can continue and the great American lie can persist. But I think by that point it might be too damn late. I don't know. It's a scary thing about being alive in the modern day. You know, like, it's fine. I don't think the world's about to end or anything like that, but I do think America and its current, like, you know, at least the way things have been going, that seems to be, I don't know, man. I don't know how to put it. I'm not saying the world is ending, but I am saying that inshitification is getting to a point where it is becoming increasingly difficult to imagine any of the massive changes that would need to happen in America happening in a timely enough fashion to avert the many catastrophes. Taxing will never actually work because that makes AI just leave from the country that taxed them, and that's actually a bad case. So, yeah, not really much to do instead of delay things. So, what's your solution? So, like, I'm just because I don't know. I run into this problem a lot where I'm pointing out this massive problem that's going to create a bunch of problems, and all the solutions I propose just get shot down. But usually, the answer from my opponent tends to rely on magical thinking. It tends to rely on this notion that for some inexplicable reason, the rich are just suddenly going to choose one day, out of the goodness of their hearts, I suppose, to treat the working class with dignity and respect and make sure that the boat stays aright by providing a universal basic income and a bunch of socialist measures anyway. But I just don't see that happening. I mean, it's kind of been, you know, going the opposite way, in fact. Seems like the people trying their hardest to bring about the reduction of the human workforce through AI and automation are also some of the people most fervently advocating for the dissolution of the administrative state and the end of social programs, etc. The problem makes problems, and solutions always makes a problem because the problem started a long time ago. That's just a cop-out. That's just a cop-out so we don't ever have to commit to anything. So that we can sit around feeling smug about how smart we are for knowing what all the problems are. But so that we never have to be called to account for one of our solutions being badly presented or being tried in some instance and not quite working out. I feel like it's just a way for people to skirt around having conviction. I may be wrong, but at least I'm willing to stand up and, you know, on the stream say that I believe we need to transition to a market socialist system. I think the people, as in all of us together, us regular folk, the working class, however you want to refer to it, need to take ownership of their means of production. I think that now includes automation and AI and software development and other various types of white-collar work that Marx and Engels could have never envisioned or imagined. And I just think that that kind of thing needs to be brought into the fore when it comes to American political discourse. It needs to not be such a dirty set of words. Excuse me, are you woke? Yes. I'm very woke. I'm the wokest bitch you ever did woke. You ain't never met a bitch as woke as me. I'm the wokest bitch this side of the Mississippi. Well, your solutions works, but the means to do that is to gain a bunch of capital in a quick and distributed fashion and settle in a reasonable profit that reduces the rich and influence completely. Man, people say I'm a dreamer. So basically, what you're saying is that in order to subvert this system, we need to... So you're basically saying in order to fully undermine the system, you need to subvert it by, finding a way around the core driving principles of capitalism, which heavily incentivize people to look out for their own interests above everyone else's, and make people act in what would be a communalistic fashion, helping one another to be better, but rather than, working together in a common act of solidarity and direct action, instead, the communal action should be, let's try and scalp as much back off of the rich as we can, so that reduces them in power and influence. I feel like the problem with that is, it ultimately just, provides yet another cultural incentive for someone who might not otherwise be so minded to, rigidly pursue capitalistic gain and self-interest in a way that I think does actually corrupt people after a long enough point. And, I think once people start making too much money for too long, I think it does something to them. I don't know quite how to put it, but it changes people in bad ways. I think once you realize the kind of power that you can wield over your fellow human being, once you've got fuck you money, makes a person very, very unwilling to give that money up. I wish I could smoke weed, although I'm jealous over here. I got brain surgery coming up, and I'm trying to let my immune system be as strong as possible. I don't want to... Oh yeah, that's valid, Matsumoons. I don't blame you a bit. I don't blame you a bit. Sitting over here thinking about my ARC save file. I don't know if I remembered to to cryo my Man of Armor before I logged out. I hope I did. Because I kind of like to make people think I'm just kind of a Bob. A little bit, Technically, that's communion system, but you actually have to create that situation like you would need a whole country or even an island sanctuary that isolates but makes a standalone region. Yeah, that's just not feasible. I don't know. That seems impossible to me. It seems to me a lot easier to invigorate people around the idea of organizing along the basis of solidarity. You know, commonality between human beings, the class struggle, to get people to understand that there are ways to live and organize, and there are systems we can create that can lead to way better outcomes than what people are having to scrape by for today. I love Arc. I played Evolved so much. I bet Ascended is hype. Why is it that so few people have upgraded to Ascended? Well, okay, I kind of get it, I guess, because a lot of people feel like it's like, oh, you know, why should I have to pay to fucking upgrade? It's the same game and all that. But honestly, dude, Ascended has enough unique content and enough quality of life improvements just natively on it that I think it's well worth it, personally. I think ASA is leaps and bounds better. It basically fixed most things that I didn't like about ASE. The only thing that I had to fix on my own was basically finding unofficial PvP server that fitted my interest, you know? That can be done through Discord, but you have to, what is it? Have like make assembly that allows for this instead of like normal system when you need to research geography to route around on your own power. But that's like hard. Yeah, that's incredibly hard. I feel like it would be way easier to just, you know, unite people along a common, easily comprehensible set of goals that is going to be achieved through a very easy to follow and understand plan, right? Because, like, what you're talking about is, I mean, you know, honestly, the biggest hurdle you're going to face is the PR. Like, how are you distinguishing yourself? Not you in particular, but this movement. How does this movement distinguish itself from any of the many different separatist cults that have existed in America's history? That would need to be an intrinsic part of the planning. And I think that such accusations would be forthcoming regardless of the amount of planning and apologetics done in advance or in the aftermath or during the whole affair. So, given that, I think it's yet another reason why we would be better off just really seriously considering ideas like the one I have, you know? 30 million people divided between Washington, D.C. and Wall Street, when we occupy every square inch of public space, every fucking sidewalk, and onto like some of the parking spaces and the roads and shit, every square inch public space that we can sit in, occupy, fucking pitch a tent, put up a kitchen, whatever, we do it. You know, I think it would require a few organizers learning about the rainbow model and figuring out how to effectively distribute people and shit like that, and organize communities in kind of like a direct action kind of fuck the government kind of way. But it would be very easy to get some people on board with that. And at this point, there are more than 30 million people in America with very little to lose and very little that they're living for already who would be willing to join such a movement. I envision it like starting somewhere in the Pacific Northwest or something. And, you know, like buses and caravans ride out from the Pacific Northwest south through the wide expanse of the Western Rockies and California, and then east through Arizona and New Mexico, and the Midwest and the South, eventually culminating in millions and millions of people descending in two of the biggest centers of power in the United States. And we stay there with a simple list of 5 demands until our needs are met. And nothing I'm advocating for is illegal. This is literally affirmed to us in the First Amendment. I'm asking for the people to peaceably assemble to petition our government for a redress of grievances. Well, it's a strong way to do it and has a high success if it's done correctly, but it needs more than just planning. For sure. 200% agree. I'm for it. See what I mean? Just talking about this, I've got people thinking, oh, yes, please. I'm not the only one. And you guys in chat, you are not the only ones either. Well, that's just not very powerful. It makes more problems than it... No, it's not. You have no idea. I'm not trying to be rude, but you have no idea. The anti-war movement succeeded largely because of these sorts of actions. The civil rights movement succeeded specifically because of this sort of action. The exact manner of resistance that I am proposing is the manner of resistance in which most meaningful change that has been applied at the will of the people has happened in America over the course of the last 60 years. It's nothing radical or insane. It's just something we haven't really seen done since the early 70s, which is why it feels so unfamiliar to most people. By the nature of a rise up like this, it would not be random. It would obviously involve the coordination of probably at least 100 different leaders and organizers in different parts of the United States that are aware and that start raising direct awareness and getting people hyped up and trying to figure out people for this movement months before it ever takes off, right? And then that's part of the, that's part of the message and part of the marketing of it is that people see all these other people from different communities doing it. And part of it's, at the behest of these organizers that have been working to get people to involve themselves in this movement. And part of it's at the behest of people who just want to be involved in something bigger than themselves. That can actually stand to help themselves, their community, their state, their nation. As more and more people see that, as more and more people see the, the wave of change heading their way, there are going to be people that are convinced just by the social contagion of it, just by the virality of it. There'll be people who join basically because it becomes a meme. Now, I personally think it's just as likely, if not way more likely, for me to talk about something like this happening than it is to talk about some group of working class average Joes coming together in a geographically secure region and creating like a micronation that appropriates the wealth from the rich by playing their game against them, even though the whole game is rigged specifically to prevent that. I feel like I can point out a number of holes in that, but nobody's ever been able to point it, like poke any holes in my plan. It has to be timed, and the instability has to actually be next to perfect, even though it's a popular decision. The ones in charge are pushing these buttons, so we need to make new buttons, essentially. Oh, yeah, I agree there, yes. Obviously, it would need to be timed. I mean, yes, we 100% agree there. I'm not advocating for people to just start doing this right now. What I'm advocating for is for people to start talking about this right now. Because if enough people start talking about it, some other people are going to reach out to me. And maybe we will be able to come up with a national movement that can do this. And yes, obviously it would have to be timed. Depending on how long it takes to organize, maybe it doesn't even end up happening within the Trump administration. Maybe it ends up like coalescing during the Trump administration as a group or a movement, but it's kind of like underground until go time, which maybe ends up being, who knows, maybe a Democrat will win in 2028, but then in 2029 they'll, re-engage with Iran or something. And maybe then that's go time. Or maybe they decide to veto or campaign against some, progressive bill that there's lots of people rooting for. I think that, yes, you do have to wait for the right moment. You have to have the organization building at that time. But it's also one of these things that can have a little lag between what is to be seen as the inspiring event and the movement as it occurs. The same thing happened with George Floyd and the protests surrounding Floyd's death. It didn't become like a national coordinated movement, and never really became like a national coordinated movement, but it didn't become like a national movement with any level of mass coordination until probably a week after. It's something like this, I think it would probably take like 2-3 weeks for it to go from, instigating event to, holy shit, there's lots of people talking about this and they're almost in DC now. This fucking sucks movement is long overdue. Maybe that's what we should call it. TFS movement. This fucking sucks movement. Swing with the pendulum and it will hit the bell and be effective, essentially. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it as well. Maybe we don't see so different after all. Because I'm not saying it's something that needs to happen by the end of this year. I would like to be able to participate in it, and I'm definitely not going to be able to if it happens this year. So, but like, part of that's not just like, a lot of that's not just my own, self-interest or whatever. It's also just like pragmatics. I've been talking about this for a while, but I have yet to be reached out to by anyone to try and start organizing a movement along these lines. In any serious way. I will say this is the first chat that I've had where, it's the first chat that I've had in a while, I think, where people have been so overwhelmingly supportive of the idea here in chat, which I think is indicative of how far things have gone and how interested people are in seeing an actual change. I probably sound like a broken record sometimes for talking about this shit all the time, but I don't see any other way how we get ourselves out of this pickle. Not to sound like a grandma, but I just don't see any other way, kids. I don't see any other way of getting yourselves out of this pickle. You've gotten yourselves into quite a pickle. Oh, look at you. Haven't you gotten yourself into quite a pickle? Quite a pickle. That phrase is glorious. We have to talk about it continuously? Yeah. I fear it gets repetitive for some people and kind of annoying at times, but what am I to do? I care about this shit. I want us to have a better life. I want us to have a more survivable future. Not just for my own kid, but for all of you guys as kids, if you have any. For all of you guys, even if you don't. You have lives that deserve living and happiness. You are someone's child. You are the Earth's child, if you are no one else's. And I love you just as the Earth does. In fact, maybe more, because I don't think we can quantify the Earth's emotions. But I do have a genuine love for humanity, just generally. A deep well of love for this species. I get real pissed off at us. There's a lot of really dumb fucking people on this planet. Some of them tend to be very loud. But at the end of the day, I can see the humanity in anybody if I try hard enough. Well, AI is beneficial, but the cost it used, I don't see cost efficiency actually being something everyone would be capable of using. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what you're trying to say there, but when it comes to the cost of AI and everything, I think that AI is going to start paying for itself basically whenever they figure out how to effectively integrate AI models in with extant and in development robotics and automation technology. There are already tons of robots in the factories and warehouses where human beings regularly work. Almost all the work that is done in these places is done by machines, whether they're human controlled or programmed on a set program and merely watched over by a human. We are, in my opinion, as little as 5 years away from there being just a good 30% of people who are out of a job. Because there are just a whole bunch of jobs that are just mechanical in nature, basically. Like, think about it, a warehouse job, right? What ultimately is a warehouse job? It's a big mechanical sorting puzzle with a bunch of industrial equipment that, like, could already be done with complex technology in ways we can already see. It's just that, we don't quite trust, technology with that quite yet, but we're very close to the point where we can. All it's going to take is for one of these companies, I forget, what is it, Heinrich? I forget the name of the company, but there's a couple of different companies that make warehousing equipment. Those forklifts that are designed to lift a pallet up, 30 feet in the air and then stack it on the very top shelf of incredibly high warehouse shelf and shit like that. Those currently need a human pilot, but there's no reason why they actually need a human pilot. Like, there's really no good reason why they actually need one. Like, a human could be replaced by, extra battery storage and a computer unit that does, like some of the distributed computing, basically, for, obviously, like, the system as a whole, but also has the task of, like, manipulating that particular unit as its control unit. That is so close. We are just a cunt hair away from that becoming pretty standard in a lot of warehouses and factories. In my opinion, anyway. Restocking shelves at stores is kind of like a similar story. It is not long before Walmart or Target or one of these companies figures out some way to like, I imagine at first it'll be robots that are loaded up by human workers whose job basically becomes loading up these robots and, less and less stocking day by day, year after year. But eventually I think that there will be, within the next couple of years probably, there will be stores in America testing out robotic stalkers that are given, like this big half a pallet of groceries or whatever, and then from its little bay, it's like boop, 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 restocks the shelves and then goes back for more in a way that'll be infinitely more efficient and quicker than a human stalker could be. I'm sure the technology will be clunky at first, but they'll improve it, and it won't be long before the pallet bot is in every Walmart across America. Someone would probably just be overseeing things rather than automatic, and that's actually been used in restocks at night in some stores. How did I know? How did I fucking know? How did I fucking know? Dude, that's crazy. I've heard whispers of stuff like that, but that makes sense. Well, I basically heard other people saying kind of what I was saying, like, oh, I've heard that maybe some stores are considering, like, robots maybe restocking at night, but I didn't know they were already doing it. That's wild. I think it's going to be sooner than you think. Japan has full AI-operated convenience stores with no human. I've seen this been used for multiple years, actually. Damn, radical. That's crazy. I guess I'm just not up on the times. Oh. Goes to show you how quick this shit's coming. And I think that people are right when they say it's sooner than I think. I give myself plenty of time because time is weird, right? Things don't move at the pace you necessarily expect them to. Conscience stores, yeah. I think they call that a Catholic church. I believe that's the Conscience store, if I'm not mistaken. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is quiet. Virgin Mother, child, sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Hey, Daisy. Well, the weather outside is frightful, and this song is so delightful. But since it's only August, let us lust, let us lust, let us lust. Well, soon enough it'll be Christmas. Let's see, what rhymes with Christmas? Well, soon enough it'll be Christmas. I know the elves do surely miss us. But since we barely even got rain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. Christmas in August, dude. I'm the worst about this shit. I sing Christmas carols all year long. The first Noel, the angels did sing. Wrong time of year? It is never the wrong time of year for beautiful carols of joy. The first Noel, the angels did say, was to certain poor shepherds in fields as they lay, in fields where they lay, keeping their sheep on a cold winter's night that was so deep. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. Noel, 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 born is the King of Israel. AI isn't that bad, but it's not really a net positive. I can personally go days without it. Yeah, that's my thing. It's one of those things that I think is nuanced because it stands to benefit humanity quite a bit if the exchange were more fair. I'm all about ending pointless drudgery for human beings. I'm all about us living more noble and valuable lives, where we've got the ability, the meaningful ability, to express more of ourselves throughout more of our time on this planet in ways that feel meaningful to us and meaningful to others. Such is not a life that is easy to obtain. Working one of these regular shit jobs that works you 9, 10, 12 hours a day, 4, 5, 6 days a week, dog shit wages, so you're never able to really get ahead and afford to look for a better job, and you're not getting promoted often enough to get to the point where you're really getting ahead in the rat race. Every step you do get ahead in the rat race, you feel this need to reward yourself for that participation with, greater and greater trophies of your efforts. And it keeps people locked in this self-destructive, avaricious cycle. Kitty, trying to smoke. I don't want you right up on me when I'm smoking. I don't know why you want to be right up on me when I'm smoking. Shit don't make no sense. I know the ventilation in here is good, but it ain't that damn good. Discovered I'm two-spirited, something I discovered through Eastern philosophy and Buddhism, Lotus Sutra. I thought two-spirit was exclusively like a Native American thing. I don't know, maybe other cultures have equivalent concepts. What do I know? But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's a nuanced topic because I do want human beings to be free of the needless, pointless, and perpetual drudgery to which the working class of the species has been subjected to. For at least the last, couple hundred years, but I would argue for the last 12,000 years, as agriculture has created increasingly more striated environments and cultures and societies. I like the potential of AI. There's a script that I started working on when the ice storm struck, and I had to write by candlelight and pen and paper, literally. It was the first time I'd handwritten much of anything in almost 10 years. But I was very inspired to write because it was basically like the only thing I could do during the ice storm is like I could talk to my mom and dad, who I was holed up in the frozen out house with. We were all confined to like 2 rooms in the house, basically the central 2 rooms where there was a good gas heater in there. So it was like talk to them, but then after they would go to sleep, because they wanted to go to sleep earlier than I did, I naturally have a later kind of sleep cycle and shit. So I would stay up and write by candlelight. And one of the things I ended up writing was actually this. I started writing the beginnings of a script that I've taken to calling In Defense of AI. And I haven't worked on it since the ice storm, which I guess speaks to my low quality as a writer, but or my tendencies as a procrastinator, one way or the other. But it kind of goes into this, how ultimately I believe a lot in the potential of AI. I just don't think that potential can be meaningfully achieved unless the gains that capital makes with AI are met with a commensurate amount of gains in the quality of life and purchasing power of the working class. And the only way I see that happening is if we've got some kind of like direct connection to that income stream. Once again, I believe in the idea of the workers owning the means of production. And when you're talking about an AI company, you're talking about the workers in the communities in which that AI is being used or whatever. And like, so you're talking about extrapolating it to more than just the people who work for that AI company. At that point, the workers owning the means of production means that workers who do not personally work for these companies. It's the same reason why, like workers owning the means of production kind of extrapolates to a more broadly democratic and collectivist system if you're talking about like public utilities. Because anything that is big enough and widespread and utility enough and that has, I would say, enough influence over our society, you kind of have to have checks and balances on that. Right now, we've chosen not to have any of that over on AI. And certainly none or very little of that profit is being redirected. So I'm essentially opposed to AI in the sense I've never been on the never been in the jump, because the eventual pop would actually end anyone. But if I got a percentage from it, I wouldn't be financially opposed, essentially. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Hopefully living somewhere either out west or in kind of like southern Missouri, maybe central Missouri. That's like plan B. Plan A is somewhere out west, with water rights, where I can have a reasonably sized garden. Not anything huge, but I would like to be able to, at least produce some of my own food around my own little plot of land and shit. That's one of my 5-year plans, one of my 5-year, like, long-term goals, so to speak. Or I'm completed by, and, I could think of a million other things that I would like to happen in 5 years, but we're probably getting pretty far off the question. Not exclusively, it's in Hinduism, Buddhism, a fair few, but usually a different perception. I'm in VC. I was not planning on staying up that much longer. I see you in journalism or punditry. Yeah, that's pretty much like the direction I want to go, as far as like my career goes. That's another thing. I want to, I don't know, journalism or punditry is the right word? Journalism, maybe. Because I want to do, like, journalistic documentaries as one of the things I do. Your god is fake. I am your new god.
PBS.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so tired.
Yeah, you don't have to stay on. I just thought you might want somebody to talk to.
Well, I'm just complaining because I'm always tired now, dog.
Yeah.
I'm always fucking
That be
tired,
how
man.
life do sometimes.
Nah, dude. For me, it's like fucking all the time now. Ugh, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it so bad.
Maybe you just need like a really, 12-hour sleep.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna get that for over a week, so. Not unless I choose to just not stream for a night. Which, I don't know. Like, the fact that I barely made anything the last couple of nights makes me think that maybe I should have taken one of these nights off, but oh well.
I think so too. You should probably take at least one night off and just sleep and be energized.
Well, it feels like, I'm trying to raise money for this Washington trip, trying to set as much back and aside as I can for that, and also achieve the other things that I'm trying to do this year, paying off my debts and tickets and bullshit like that. So I feel like a financial incentive to come and do it even when I'm tired, because I do enjoy doing it, but it's also like, it's how I pay my bills, and it's how I'm kind of like rebuilding my life, and it's how I'm affording to do other neat things in my life and stuff. So it's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, no one said it would be easy.
Well, I know that, but when someone says, "Oh, just take a night off," I'm just saying why. My impulse
why you feel like you can't. I understand.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying, that's nothing against my audience or anything. My audience obviously rewards me pretty generously, but I also kind of feel like it's incumbent on me to put myself out there and give the people my nightly performance if I can fucking manage to stand it. And, sometimes I'll have a bad night in terms of donos and just think, maybe I should have taken the night off. But by the time I have that realization, it's usually too late.
Well, I think everybody needs at least one day off. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying, like, that's why it takes me so long to convince myself to do that, because it feels almost into, like, I'm very autistic in ways that I don't think necessarily translate well. We found this out the other day, but one of the things is, like, I am very, very, like, schedule oriented. Once I start getting into a routine, not even schedule oriented, but like routine oriented. And this, you know, like these streams are kind of like a part of my nightly routine now, and so not doing one in a night feels weird.
Feels weird?
Yeah. Feels weird.
It feels Robert.
Yeah, exactly. Robert. I don't want to sleep, Robert.
It's like you're stuck in limbo somewhere.
Robert, give me your credit card information, Robert.
Yes.
Robert, you need to go to Walmart. You need to buy $45 of Google Play gift cards, Robert. Put in your credit card information to avoid the draft, Robert.
No, Robert. Do not open the key yourself, Robert. Stop it.
This is more of a hobby mindset
funny.
instead of a job mindset, which is still healthy. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why, despite the fact that I'm not, like, great at this and I'm not, like, the most professional about it, although there's elements of professionality to it that maybe you guys probably, like, don't notice or whatever, but I think that's one of the reasons why I'm able to pay my bills on it and why the channels continue to grow and everything. It's because there's, like, a level of authenticity to this channel that is kind of hard to find with someone that has trained themselves over the course of 5, 6, 7 years of doing this professionally to look at their content as like a revenue generator machine and refine everything to the nth degree. You get a pretty raw, unfiltered, and sometimes kind of ugly perspective over here, but it's authentic at the very least. It's not something you're going to find a lot of on the kind of like YouTube, kind of left tube scene.
How do you feel? How do you feel about like Indian scammers and stuff? And how do you feel about YouTubers like making their whole profession around basically scamming the scammers?
Oh, I love those people. The scammers, I mean, like, dude, they're just regular working class people trying to make their nut. But one of the risks you fucking take if you're gonna do that kind of scammy bullshit is getting scammed back. And, you know, socially manipulated in your own right. And so, I look at it as like, I'm not gonna like sit here and racially profile those guys or make any assumptions about them or whatever, but what I will say is that I do like watching them get fucked over and led down the primrose path by these scammer, hunter, junk call, manipulator kind of channels, because they can get all kinds of stuff out of these people sometimes. Money.
Right.
Real money sometimes.
And they do take advantage of a lot of old people who are more prone to that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was talking about the scam, like, hunter channels, but yeah, like, the scammers in particular, the scammers hunt old people, fucking poor people, people on disability. Like, they're literally, like, scum of the earth type people, in terms of their tactics, but it's not like, by virtue of their race or anything.
Jesus Christ. Here it comes.
Indian scammers target Americans for the same reason that American scammers target Canadians or Brits or people from other countries, and African scammers target Americans and Europeans and Russians, and Russian scammers target Chinese people and German. It's like countries, dude. It's like there's people that scam their own country people, but that's always riskiest, right? It's always riskiest scamming somebody who can actually show up at your fucking address or can look into the business and speaks the local language. It's way easier to scam somebody from abroad, from a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with your country or that's got bellicose relations with your country or whatever, and try and and many times it's also more profitable. If you can convince some dumbass American to forfeit $5,000 US over nothing, that's going to pay for a lot more in India than it would in the United States.
Sure. But I feel like, a lot of these people who actually own these, like, scam call centers probably take advantage and probably pay them out very little, except for maybe their top scammers.
Oh, sure, yeah, they're horrible people. I'm not saying they're, like, good people. I'm just like, I don't know. I guess, like, I don't rush to morally judge them because I feel like the whole reason why they exist is because we've got this, like, predatory system of global capitalism.
Oh, for sure. I don't know. There's probably not too many options for them, I assume. Or they'd be doing anything else respectable.
Right.
Do you think there's any, like, slavery in that sort of thing? Where people are
like,
basically wage slaves and, like, paying, like, 99% of what they make to the scam center?
One thing you'll learn if you start learning about, like, modern slavery as it exists in the modern day, slavery never really quite went away, and it exists to some degree or another in practically every industry on the planet. So yeah, I'm sure that there are, human trafficked individuals working in that situation over there in India and Pakistan.
Well, yeah, every company takes advantage of, minerals being mined out by poor and enslaved people, foods, any combination of that.
Yeah, I mean, like the chocolate industry. The chocolate industry is built on slavery. That's just kind of like been an open secret for years now, but people keep eating chocolate,
Hey, I like bananas.
Bananas, another industry propped up by slavery. And the fucking problem of it is, right, and what makes it morally ethically kind of murky is that there are ethical banana plantations that are run as cooperatives by the local communities where those banana groves are, but they're fewer in number by far than the.
Yeah, they cost more.
Of course, right? Bananas from there go for a way higher premium because they've got this traceable source that is almost artisanal in the degree to which it is organic, and people are obviously going to pay a higher premium for those bananas, even if there's not genetically any fucking difference between it and any other goddamn Cavendish banana on the planet. But people will still pay a higher premium for it just because of the sourcing, which makes sense to me on some level, supply and demand and all that, right? But on the other hand, why the fuck is it legal for an American company operating in a country where slavery is not legal to profit off of an income stream derived from slave labor? That seems like it should be grounds for arrest and confiscation of profits.
I would agree, but I'm going to guess that the economy is so poor in those countries that the country itself is allowing it because without it, they would be, even more fucked without it.
Well,
without
that's the thing.
industry.
You're right, kind of. Like, it's like the people aren't the ones allowing it, though. It's like the rich people and oligarchs in those countries that are allowing it, and that's the justification that they use. But the truth of it is that if American companies were to put pressure on these places by saying, we are no longer going to buy bananas from any plantation that has slavery on it, and we will know, and here's the list of plantations that are being cut off, and here's the list of plantations that still grow. Like, at a certain point, the people who are actually working the banana farms and shit, eventually they're going to get sick of not being able to sell bananas, and eventually even the people who were basically the banana slaves are going to realize that there is, like, I don't know, man. I just think that there's an opportunity here if America still had a conscience and wanted to use its,
that's the thing. Our government has propped up, like, the banana war. We've had wars over chocolate and coffee, bananas, you name it.
I know all this.
But what these people need to recognize is they have a unique resource. You can't just grow bananas, coffee, and chocolate in just everywhere. There's very specific climates, and they need to take advantage of that and ask for a livable wage. They need to seize the means of their own production back from these corporations that are enslaving them.
Right.
How do you do that? Because they bring in, like, militia to take back control of the area every time something like that happens. The private
that's the thing, dude.
security, whatever you want to call it.
I know America doesn't have a conscience, but if we did have a conscience and we flatly did not buy from countries engaging in those tactics and companies engaging in those tactics and plantations engaging in those abuses, then, like, at a certain point,
that's the thing. How many places technically can you get chocolate from? Hawaii?
I don't know if you're hearing what I'm saying. There are places in all of these countries, there are ethical, non-slave plantations for all of these products.
Tony's Chocolate Resources, ethical chocolate, right? For instance.
Well, I mean, like, it's not exactly fucking common on the market, but there are a few fucking, like I said, cooperatively run, like, ethical fucking cocoa plantations. They're not common, but, like, what I'm trying to say is that if we cut off all of our purchases to these rich oligarchs in these third world countries through their sugar plantations and their cocoa plantations and banana plantations and shit, and we started exclusively allowing our country and our companies to work with like, either countries that completely make it to where that's not a thing, or places within these countries that do have these toxic systems that are not set up like that are actually ethical. And, like, slowly but surely, the places that the oligarchs own will have more and more of their crop rot on the vine or rot in storage as they desperately try to offload it to countries that don't eat nearly as much exotic shit as we do. And I think that in itself will foment like revolution and uprising that no amount of militia will be able to stymie, because, like, the only reason why the militia works even as a threat in these places is because there's, like, a better alternative to walk home to. Because if you walk home, you can still wake up and go to the banana farm the next day. But when you've got nothing to lose, because America's not buying your bananas anymore, and so even the slave wages you were earning before are no longer a thing, and the person that was employing you is getting, noticeably less resourceful day by day, eventually, like, the loyalties of these militias will break down, and many of them may end up just returning to their home communities. I don't know. I don't want to prognosticate too much, but
right. Well, I think it would be a worldwide effort because I don't think there's a country on the earth that probably doesn't eat some chocolate.
Oh yeah,
everybody would have to say fuck that shit, basically. On a nicer note, ex-Abercrombie and Fitch CEO mentally fit for sex trafficking trial.
What is it?
Ex-Abercrombie and Fitch CEO is mentally fit for a sex trafficking trial.
Oh.
Yeah, he's a guy who's like, ugly people should be wearing ugly people. He didn't want ugly people wearing their sweatshop clothes and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
It's just a very like hoity-toity piece of shit, basically.
Yeah, I remember that guy. He is a piece of shit. I'm glad he's getting his comeuppance.
Yeah. But he's old. He'll probably be fighting this, and he'll probably fight this forever until he dies. But...
Oh, yeah. That's what I would guess. I think I'm going to hop off the stream.
Oh, you're going to go take a little nappy poo?
Yeah, here in a minute. To y'all watching, thank you guys for hanging out. Sorry I couldn't stream with y'all longer tonight, but it's been about 2 hours, so I'm going to call it quits here. Remember to like the stream, share it if you can. Make sure you're subscribed, got the bell ring and everything. Also, this is an audience-funded project, so if you can support either via Cash App, which is down below in the description, or via Super Chat or Super Thanks. Super Chat you can leave before I go, and Super Thanks can be done after I go in the comments section. Either way, I appreciate you guys immensely, and I'm sorry once again I couldn't be here for longer. Technically, Belgian rubber was essentially a point. People actually documented that, but people rarely bring it up. It was essentially a point. People actually document what? I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to say, but anyway. Thank you guys for hanging out. I will see you guys later. Peace. The fuck out.